Amit Kumar, and welcome to our panel discussion today. I'll be a host for next 60 minutes, and we hopefully have a riveting discussion on our topic. Let me start with a little background. Exactly a year back, almost to the day, the world as we know today came to a still. Banks and other financial services firms were some of the worst hit industries. Over a period of time, as the crisis unfolded, we began to see automation as one of the responses that these banks and financial services firms had to address these pandemic-related challenges. And having proved its worth, we at UiPath believe that automation is here to stay and is ready to play a prime role in the strategic agenda of these banks. Which brings me to the topic of the day today, which is reimagining some of these process journeys, hear some real stories, and hear more from our practitioners and from our customers as far as automation is concerned. So, without further ado, let me take the privilege of welcoming our guest today, and I'll start with Ravi Vakachela, who's EVP, Chief Transformation Officer at People's United Bank. Welcome, Ravi. So I'll start with a few words about.
Thanks, Amit. Hi.
Yeah, I'll just introduce Ravi to the audience. So Ravi heads the Business Transformation Office at People's United Bank. This particular team looks at multiple facets. They look at digitization, automation, process optimization, as well as fintech partnership. Prior to this role, Ravi was EVP for Operations, Product Management, and Digital at People's United, and has also been Chief Architect at the bank, and has been the bank veteran for about 16 years. So welcome again, Ravi. Looking forward to hearing more from the scaled success that you've had at the bank.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'll move to our next guest, and it's a pleasure to actually re-meet him, if I may use that word. David Hernandez, VP Manager of Operational Excellence at City National Bank. Welcome to the panel, David.
Hey, Amit, how are you?
Doing all right. Let me take a couple of minutes, for our audience to know more about David. David is a 10+ years of financial services veteran now. He is leading operational excellence for both the banking as well as investment services at City National Bank. And as part of that particular portfolio, he leads the Automation Center of Excellence that he has set up at the bank. Good to have both Ravi and David, and I must admit I have the best seat to hear these two practitioners. So without further ado, let me jump directly into the questions. And Ravi, I'll take the liberty of maybe asking you this first. You've had tremendous success at People's United Bank, from automation perspective. If you could share your insights, what's the journey been like at the bank for our audience today? I think that would be a great start to this conversation.
Sure, happy to. So if I have to describe our journey in one word, I would say amazing. And I don't think there are many initiatives we have started from the ground up, like our Process Automation Center of Excellence, where a year into it, where we not just accomplished our goals, but surpassed them, and with flying colors. I can probably count on one hand where I can give such a resounding endorsement of a program started from the ground up. It's been an amazing journey, and I have to say it is completely, if not primarily, due to the team, right, and their dedication of what our head of process automation, Rasa Malish, and her team have done to set this up. So just a little bit of context, Amit, and we can get into the details as applicable, but we tried automation, by the way, more than 10 years ago with a slightly different approach. This is our second go at it, and this time it was successful. The primary difference is we took the approach of citizen-led development this time around, right? Do you want me to continue or just?
Sure. No, I think that.
How long do I have for the for the initial? So
take as much time. I think it's quite relevant. The point that you made about second coming, so to say. So if you could elaborate on that piece, I think I'm pretty sure it'll be very interesting for our audience to know in terms of what you did earlier versus the citizen development approach that you took for the second coming.
Yeah. So more than about probably 11 years ago, when I was on the IT side, we started automation before RPA was fashionable, if I may say so. And we took the approach of, okay, we know what to automate. We'll go in there and we'll automate it. It was a different approach than this time, and we had some lessons learned, right, because of that. And that didn't really take on as much as we thought it would, right? You can attribute it to many factors, right? But this time when we tried a year ago was we did a full reevaluation, and starting with the platform that we picked, it was important to us that the platform is as business user friendly as possible. That was if we had 10 goals for picking the platform, 1, 2, and 3 were that, right? And then there is 4, 5, 6 and other factors. So that was an important one. And we did go through a full proper RFP process with POCs and and various other analysis. And obviously, I'm here today, so I think it's it's safe to assume that we picked UiPath. It's been very, very successful, not just because UiPath has been a great partner to us, but we took the approach of, again, it's more of a opt-in approach, right? We took the time to create the charter, the proper operating model, governance framework, and we took the time to bring in our business line leaders, and all of our, from zero to in a year, right? We were able to scale more than 100 business non-technical business unit people as RPA associates, whether they all play different roles. There's RPA sponsors, the program managers, the RPA business analysts, the RPA developers. It's all citizen-led, right? And we do have a centralized process automation center of excellence that primarily owns the charter, the governance, and basically helping with the upskilling, the training, the evangelizing of RPA, acting as the central unit in between our technology team, who has been amazing in terms of being able to provide us the support of making sure. One of the important things about automation is you need to have very stable infrastructure, right? Sometimes you tend to forget. It's not magically, amazingly something won't work. And again, think of it, if a human would do something 5 times a week, and you automate that and you're able to get productivity of, oh yeah, wow, the bot's doing it 5,000 times a week. But then for it to do that, the infrastructure has to be up and running and available. So again, primarily, I would say we took a opt-in approach. That's one. 2, we valued time as a currency, to create the capacity and the interest for change, right? And then the governance model that I mentioned is an integrated governance model where we took the participation of the business line people in creating that governance model. We didn't sit in a in a corner where a couple of people read up everything they can about RPA, and the experts now roll out this, here is the mandate, right? And everybody please follow it. No, it was, we brought them in upfront. There was a lot of focus on why. Why are we doing this? What are we planning to achieve? And we led with the why, right? And by the way, like I said, more than 100 RPA associates in a year, significant wild success in the bank. All of this with a very small RPA team, 6 people. That's it, right? And the last one I would say is you have to reimagine your incentives, right? The incentives have to reward collaboration. I cannot emphasize enough on the importance of it. It's a team play. RPA does not work if there is asymmetry in who is considered like a significant owner or beneficiary. So we really took care to make sure the core RPA team, the technology team, and the business units, it's a tripod, all equal stakeholders, right? One team does the governance and evangelizing and everything. The business owners and the business unit people, they get the benefit, and it's their program. We do not set priorities. They set the priorities. We help execute the priorities. We help them understand the process to prioritize, but it is their priorities. We don't have our own. It is the bank's priorities. Same thing with the technology team. Without them, we cannot do this. So when we took that stand where there is equal partnership, the technology, the RPA Center of Excellence, and the business units, and took this approach of citizen-led development, huge amount of success for us.
Ravi, it's a great thing that this session is being recorded because there's so many takeaways. In your opening commentary, it's fascinating for our audience today. So thanks for.
And I'll say one thing. If you noticed, in so far 5 minutes or whatever I spoke, I have not used the word cost, and that's on purpose.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I will wrap my session again with that point again. That should not be used, not in the beginning.
100%. I think reimagination of the incentives and time as a currency, I'm going to, it might be proprietary, but I'm going to use it in my conversation. So thanks for sharing that opening commentary on that, Ravi. David, you guys have had amazing success as well, and you heard from Ravi. Happy to get your perspective in terms of some of the metrics, some of the milestones in your journey since 2019. Happy to get your opening comments as well.
Yeah, definitely. So for CMB COE, the vision has always been around a few things, right? It's really improving our service levels, involving timeliness and accuracy, improving our ability to meet our regulatory compliances as we grow as an organization. And really, at the end of the day, improving our overall client and colleague experience. That's how we operate as a business, right? We want to make sure that our clients are having that world-class experience, but also reimagine how we do our work from a colleague perspective, right? So moving away with those mundane tasks and really having them do a lot more value-add activities. So that was the first kind of vision that we established as our COE. We obviously wanted to make sure that the COEs has a joint partnership with IT and business. So that was one of the first things that we established, making sure that there's that closeness and alignment on the overall strategic goal. And then secondly, making sure that you're picking an also a tool or solution that is going to partner with you and really see the vision and help execute on that. And UiPath was excellent, in being able to do that, from just the flexibility of the capabilities that initially offered to us and how it's continued to grow and really help us meet our more complex cases. And really some of the metrics that we use to manage our COE and kind of be the true north to see we're heading in the right direction are really ROI, our hours saved, our pipeline health and expansion, our delivery velocity, and overall capability adoption. That really helps us ensure that we're continuing to evaluate ourselves against our industry, and then as well as making sure that we're adopting the best capabilities and using best industry practices. And as of today, we've actually expanded to 7 divisions, have 43 processes in production. Some of those are multiple phases, so there's sub-processes within that, and have saved roughly over 50,000 hours of manual labor today. So thus far, our journey is, we started in 2019. We've scaled significantly since then. And really this past year, the pandemic kind of accelerated that growth, but it's been a great journey thus far.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Thanks for that, David. David, your last comment about acceleration of the use cases during pandemic is actually a good segue into my next question. And I'll again request Ravi's perspective. At least in UiPath, we saw a massive surge. We in fact saw and heard for the first time CEOs and CFOs talk about automation in earnings calls last year, or rather earnings Zoom calls last year. Uh, Ravi, what was happening behind the scenes at People's United Bank, when the crisis unfolded? In what shape or form were you using automation?
Yeah, well, our CEO did mention automation in our earnings call, actually, for what we did for the PPP program. I'll say this. So around March, late March timeframe, right? Middle of March is when COVID hit last year, right? So the first things that we had to do as a regional institution, we only had some people of, I would say, a minority of our colleagues who were remote enabled. So one of the first things we had to do, first challenges we had to overcome, was work with our technology team to send a huge number of people home, working from home, and set up their remote connectivity. And there was a number of lessons learned. We were very successful. Within 2 to 3 weeks, we were able to enable a number of people, colleagues, to go remote. But then we had learned that it's not just enough to enable remote technology. A lot of people were not used to working from home, and we had to go through that kind of readjustment experience. So there we were just working with the technology team between the various operations and product teams. And then, of course, around the same time, the government passed the CARES Act with the PPP. And I still remember this Thursday evening, the SBA was still fine-tuning the guidelines, and we were having a number of discussions on what we were going to do. We were planning to use a fintech partner, but by the time we were going to be ready to get the fintech partner installation, everything in place for us to use it, we were going to lose a window of opportunity. And during the first wave, I think, like most banks, we were also there was this huge concern that there may not be another wave of money by the government, and that the money would run out. There was this huge concern that maybe 3 to 4 days, all the money would run out because of the number of small businesses that were. So Thursday evening, we got the clarification, and we were like, we're going to have a huge influx. We just need to help our customers. So I still remember bringing a small 4-person team together and talking about, okay, what are some basic technologies we can use? Because there's no way we're doing this manually. And we're not going to have anybody fill out these things, scan the stuff in an email, and try to put it all in. So with the combination of some technologies like SharePoint and RPA, in 24 hours, we had a prototype ready, right? So Saturday morning, we were ready to, so Thursday night, Friday night, we did the demo to our executive team saying, this is how the process is going to work. And Saturday, we were training more than 350 or 400 of our employees in how to use this process. 72 hours from the time of clarification, we had our RPA process available as well from a back-end boarding standpoint. So it was, again, it was like we were surprising ourselves. And when the team saw the bot successfully performing, everybody stepped up. The biggest thing, if I may say so, during that period, biggest reason for our success, more than RPA, I would say, is the colleagues. It's amazing how, and I don't think that is unique to People's United Bank. I'm sure David would attest to the same thing. So would any of the institutions you might ask. The pandemic created this sense of, collaboration, and it didn't matter whether you were in marketing, whether you were in operations, in IT, in RPA, everybody was willing to help. Everybody was just, tell me what you want me to do and I'm there, right? So that combined with RPA technology, it was amazing. And the best thing I'll tell you, Amit and David, is there were people who have never heard use a swear word, or who have always spoken in full proper grammatical sentences, who were using all sorts of colorful language in elation of what the bot could do, right? I think, I don't know the exact numbers. I'm sure my team would have the numbers, but I think we did more than 12 years worth of SBA loans in just the waves with what PPP we did, right? And to onboard all those things without errors using a bot, we really, it was mind blowing, and there is a time and place to use certain phrases, right? Some of them are hyperbolic, but I will say 2020, everybody would universally agree the word unprecedented applies to 2020, right? And similarly, this experience for us was truly mind blowing.
It's surreal, and I didn't want to interrupt, but some of those metrics, that you pointed to in terms of PPP and obviously some really unprecedented work that happened behind the scenes at People's United is truly legendary, I would say, Ravi. And thanks for sharing the kind of details, that behind the scenes, blow by blow kind of an account in terms of what happened between Friday to Sunday in that momentous week is truly inspiring. I'll shift this to David, and David, my sense is it's quite similar at your end as well in City National.
Yes, and I can second that comment that everybody was just astonished at the what the bots were able to do. But one of the things, it really brought our team together. We was all hands on deck. Anywhere from our frontline associates, our technology team, and everybody in between that, we really kind of just rolled our sleeves up and really see how we were able to deliver for our clients. And being able to deliver some automation actually motivated some more other colleagues that still needed to gather documents and do some other manual work. So it was almost a motivator to the team. So they're working hand in hand with automation and really driving the overall success of PPP. But really, I believe the pandemic accelerated the need for automation overall, specifically at an enterprise level, right? But automation really allowed the firms to be able to deliver quickly. To Ravi's point, I'm sure most banks were looking at fintech solutions that had direct connections to SBA that was going to be seamlessly integrating everything end-to-end. On 2 days' notice, it's very difficult to even get a POC done with a new vendor, and let alone get something production ready. So we really had to be resourceful and look at the tools that were available to be able to deliver them. RPA, was the obvious solution for us, and it really complemented some of the other tools that we had. But really, one of the areas, obviously, that saw a huge increase in activity during the pandemic was lending because of PPP. So as a bank, we were actually able to implement one of our actual bots for PPP within 2 days. And it really continued to build out from there. We built 5 additional processes that really supported the end-to-end process of PPP, all the way from the application submittal to the payment forgiveness processing of that. And really, the overall process, it allowed us to deploy 40 unattended bots running 6 days a week for 16 hours a day. So we had to get through over 16,000 loans in a short period of time. So really, without automation and that amount of bots being deployed to account for that volume, we wouldn't have been able to do that successfully. And the upside to that as well is that not only the automation that we built for PPP, had a significant impact, and it's really highlighted the benefit and value of RPA, but it also allowed us to have those reusable components for other lending products as well. And that's actually one of the biggest lessons learned that we've took from the pandemic and the PPP experiences, making sure that we're focusing more on micro automation and building that inventory of what I'm going to call building blocks that we can continue to pull and plug in as we get to different use cases. So it overall reduces our delivery and development timeline and improves our efficiency overall.
Fantastic. No, thanks. That's great, David. And again, the metrics are quite astounding, so to say. And I know we can spend another hour just talking about good stories that happen in 2020. But we're also at a precipice, I believe. We've spent first 20 minutes sort of looking back, and I think the rest of the 40 minutes I would kind of shift more looking ahead in terms of what now. And one of our theses here at UiPath is that we are broadening our automation platform because we believe having capabilities like process intelligence, AI, machine learning are critical to sort of broadening the charter of the automation program as well. But I think this is a forum where we would like to have a true voice of customer. So I'll start with you, Ravi. Ravi, you've played, you have been wearing many hats. One of them being, enterprise architect or enterprise architecture leader. A combination of both the, where do you think, what are those critical automation capabilities that you think are going to play a very significant role in addition to the core RPA or the core automation platform itself? So happy to know your thoughts looking ahead and a sneak preview into the future.
Wow, well, that's a pretty heavy question there. But that's, if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably not be on this panel. I'd probably be, at a beach somewhere enjoying some fancy martinis. I'll give it a shot anyway. So I think there is multiple levels, right? At this point in time, if maturing the foundation is important before building castles in the air, as they say, where I come from. At this point, I think we are still in what I would consider automation of tasks that are still very clean, do not require too much human intelligence, right? And we are still trying to get more people comfortable into saying, hey, the data and technology is at a place where all these things can be automated. Credit decisioning, for example. There is still a bit of concern in general, at least in the financial services industry, of, well, is the model correct, right? If you automate all of the credit decisioning, because one of the key pieces, I mean, banks, as a bank, right, we are in the business of risk, right? So credit decisioning, etc., all of that is now automated, obviously, right? Various technologies are there. And from a ground foundational standpoint, I would say enhancing more process mining capabilities, which the industry has already started, right? There is various things, even UiPath provides us, and there are other tools in the industry as well. So maturing that process mining and kind of making it part of the workflow, right? There is a broader thing with respect to automation. There's other parts other than just the core automation or the RPA development. There is the front end portion of it, maturing all of that, bringing that into the ecosystem, right? And the value drivers, and making sure more executive level understanding of the value of automation, right? That's one thing. Then the next level, I would say, before going into aspirational or cognitive level, all that is kind of like I would look at, for example, right, way back when, if assembler was what was used to program some 8085s and 8088s, and there was some transducers and controllers, and we did that. And then there was a next level of abstraction, right? In the 70s, C came out, right? And then everybody was like, wow, procedural, amazing. Now it's going to C, it's going to change the world. And then it was C++, which became more object oriented. So in all these stages, what was happening, by the way, back in the time, I used to walk around wearing a t-shirt that said real people do C++. But anyway, that was so long ago. And then there was Java, which was a further level of abstraction, right? And if you look at it now, there is conversations about cloud native languages, right? Which is further level of encapsulation. So I would say where automation would go is similar to the cloud trajectory. That would be my projection, which is all the CI/CD stuff that happened, which everything that within deploying this automation workflow, whatever is manual will be automated, right? And similar to the CI/CD, similar to the data center technology, going from first, we'll just rent the data center, right? And then, oh, we don't have to rent the data center, we can rent the servers too, to now when you're talking about fully cloud native, everything, including the network aspects, are part of the cloud native language now, right? That's where technology and programming has gone to. I think that is where automation would go as well. And I think this folding of machine learning and AI into the ecosystem, and it's not required to be, well, we'll automate this part, then we'll hand it off to that team who will do the ML stuff and then give us an output, and then the output will come back into the automation platform. I think it'll become integrated. And now you can consider this, that perception of somebody who's smoking something, but I think that's where it would go.
And Ravi, while you were talking about C++ and it brought me and 8085, it brought me pleasant and not so pleasant memories of my introduction to microprocessors, Tostro, Kernighan and Ritchie. So I think I'll be betraying my age, but yeah, I think that was quite apt. But I think jokes apart, actually, I would say your commentary validates our thesis. You talked about process intelligence, betting or doubling down on cloud, and obviously that whole cognitive plus core RPA as at least the next milestone, so to say, to serve a broader purpose. I think that's a very well articulated, I must say, and I'm sure people would be taking notes on that. I, David, you have been dabbling with some of these technologies at City National Bank. What's your perspective? What's your take on the next, what next as far as the core automation platform is concerned?
Yeah, City National Bank is really going to continue heading in the direction of hyper automation, right? And those technologies such as process mining, advanced analytics and AI, is going to be the key focus. And I think the fact that they're all integrated on one platform, to a certain extent, complemented by automation, is going to make things a lot easier to continue to scale and implement. To Ravi's point, right? I think it's really going to coalesce and be one platform. But in addition to that, I think those are obviously really critical tools that are really going to help take the automation to the next level and allow you to, tackle those more complex use cases and get that end-to-end automation. But I also think there's a lot of value in some of the other capabilities, right? Like Automation Hub that allows you to manage your pipeline health, allows you to grow as well. So it's not necessarily a capability, but obviously it's functioned within the platform as well, because obviously you having a good pipeline of use cases will feed into the capability and options that you would actually find necessary, right, to be able to accommodate those use cases. So I think that's another capability to watch out for. In addition to that, insights, right? We can automate everything under the sun, but we need to know what benefits and actual performance we're seeing once we actually deploy that, right? So really having that end-to-end tool to be able to see what we identified as a potential automation candidate, being able to accomplish that automation via attended bots, unattended bots, advanced analytics, process mining, things of that nature, and then still being able to actually qualify that those benefits that you initially thought you're going to actually be receiving those in production. And that only just continues to further expand your automation throughout your organization and really champions RPA overall. But in terms of the operating model, I really see a shift from centralization and federated model to more of a hybrid operating model where development is democratized, right? And leveraging tools such as StudioX to really empower the business users to do their own development. And Ravi, you give a great example of how you got 100 users scale up relatively quickly, and obviously having different roles. I'm assuming that democratizing development really accelerated your implementation to RPA overall, right? And I really think that's where the industry is heading and where the models will continue to shift. And we're us empowering business users and still having a partnership with IT for really accelerating the overall implementation of automation.
Absolutely.
And David, I do agree with your part, right? Because while we are primarily and significantly citizen-led development, we do have a couple of real expert developers in our core RPA team for a really complicated enterprise automation. It is directly and fully handled by, in addition to upskilling and helping the democratization of RPA, there is some core stuff that you call it enterprise automation, if you will, that is still handled by this team. So there is place for that. I don't deny that, but I think the value is in the democratization and how much we can do, right? And one last point, if I may say, Amit, to what I said, all of what I said would only work if it can be abstracted away from the user, right? That is, you can have the fanciest technology. As they say, the best teacher is not the one who knows the most stuff, but you can abstract all of it and still convey it to the lay people. Similarly, the best technologies will only be successful if you can abstract it away and allow the business user to get value quickly without having to get a PhD in something.
No, I think that was a pearls of wisdom, Ravi, and I think in a sense we also got your perspective on the operating model because of that whole business-led and collaborative and citizen-led effort that you have done at People's United. It seems like appears to be something that people should take note of and perhaps try to replicate at their, in their financial services institutions as well. So, good to, at least good to understand the contours of that particular program so that people have design considerations and those principles laid out. And of course, every institution is different, so I'm sure they will have to put those nuances into practice as well. But thanks Ravi and David for that, for those responses. I'll move to, and again, when I was thinking about the topics, I was thinking about also the fact that you wear many hats, in your respective institutions. And one of the hat is the process excellence, process optimization. And, this is more of a zoomed out view in terms of if we see automation playing a role, given the trajectory it is moving towards, what could be those practical examples that you think, in conjunction with the capabilities that you think automation platform would have? What are those end-to-end processes? Like, for example, Ravi, you mentioned credit decisioning, which is already automated. What are those practical scenarios that you see that you're already dabbling with or have in target or crosshairs where you think automation will make a positive impact? So some real life scenarios would really be useful here.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure I was unmuted. So I would say a couple of things, right? One is it has to be on a use case by use case basis, right? That's important to know, and not treat RPA like the hammer and everything looks like a nail, right? So you have to be careful. The second thing I would say is the way we set it up. We have a process optimization group and a process automation group, right? We have both those working very closely with each other. The idea was we would go to a level of scale after this initial low-hanging fruit, okay, just to create the enthusiasm and you scale the smaller ones. Then the maturity of the program was going to be when one of the citizen-led, use cases or an automation candidate is brought forward, right? The process optimization group looks at it and says, first of all, should this even be automated, right? One of the things we like to say here is, if you automate a crappy process, all you get is a crappy automated process, and that's not the goal, right? And so first you optimize, then you automate, right? And in some cases, you find that it is something as simple as actually a process change, and you don't need to do any technology. In other cases, the right decision would be actually to work with the technology integration team, build some APIs, which could be on the roadmap. We just need to enhance it. So as long as you don't go in with RPA is your universal band-aid for all wounds, then it would be good. In terms of end-to-end, it depends on having holistic goals, right? If you look at automation or RPA as find fast band-aids for every small thing, then you're looking at it the wrong way. There is other holistic automations. It has to be, the way I would say would be, the primary purpose of automation should be improving employee experience, right? If I may go in order. And everybody talks about customer experience, but I would say if you improve employee experience, you will result in improving customer experience, right? There is the mobile UX teams, online teams. There is so much focus on customer experience. I'd like to know how many banks have done a journey mapping of their employees' experience, right? And you improve that, and that is where automation will help, which is for our top 3 goals for automation, improving employee experience is 1, right? Improving process quality is 2. That's why do we do RPA in the bank? We want to enhance employee experience and correspondingly customer experience, right? If you improve your loan payoff process from 7 days to 24 hours using RPA, then you not only made your employees happy, you also made the customers happy because it's not taking 7 days. So there is the inherent indirect relationship. Improving process quality, right? And then number 3 would be improving operational efficiency in that order. So looking at it holistically and almost looking at it as RPA is my last resort. If in the end, all of us are working in an institution which has responsibility to multiple stakeholders, right? The shareholders, the employees, the customers. And take an end-to-end view of the processes. What are you trying to improve? And take that holistic view, even if it spans multiple departments. One of the keys is each department making a huge amount of focus in automating their piece of the value chain and not looking at all 12 pieces. That's one of the mistakes. Everybody is for automation, right? Sometimes what we found is each unit is automating their piece. They know input A coming into them and output C going out, and they're automating the piece in the middle. But if you step back and take a holistic view, you find their entire piece wasn't even necessary in the first place. So what are you automating? Automating something that is not even necessary is really not a good use of time, is it? So that taking a holistic view is very important. And that's where I think this kind of overall governance and creating the importance of RPA and creating those drivers and stating your values and why you're trying to do would become important.
I think, Ravi, thanks for sharing that. I think journey mapping that goes beyond just a digital front end is something of a rarity, and to hear from you, from your vantage point, it's quite refreshing. Because I think to your point, a digital front end with a poor employee experience at the back end is not exactly serving the purpose that it is supposed to do, which is to give an enhanced customer experience end to end. So I think that's that's very refreshing to hear. Second, then I would like to Ravi, while I was listening to you, RP as a last resort is again a revalidation. Again, selfishly or a selfish plugin from UiPath would be like, for example, we have done an acquisition of Cloud Elements, which is to basically do exactly that, which is, can we have an API as an integration point and only use RPA as a connector or integration of the last resort. So a lot that resonates with our philosophy as well. So Ravi, thanks again for sharing your perspective on that. David, I think you would agree with most of what Ravi said. Like, I was nodding my head vigorously. What's happening international?
Yeah, I second all the thoughts that Ravi said, but really specifically, when you're looking at end-to-end processes, it's extremely critical to look holistically, because if you start, most end-to-end processes will span multiple teams, and if you're not looking at them in a holistic manner, it's going to be siloed, and one process may be taking up and be very efficient, and the process in the middle may be inefficient, be broken, and you're only going to automate, to Ravi's point, that crappy process faster. So it can be a bottleneck potentially within your own overall process, or break it altogether. So it's very, very important to ensure that you're reviewing the processes end to end and ensuring that they're ready for automation, right? Because you're only going to get to that same bad result much quicker by automating it. But to give you an example, I highlighted earlier, but PDP was a really good example of our end-to-end journey, where we were able to provide a lot of value and look holistically across multiple groups, how we're able to provide value. So combining our existing Salesforce solution and UiPath, just kind of a plug here, Salesforce and UiPath make development much easier as well. So that really helped us in our solution overall. So that's one of the reasons why we actually chose them. But we were able to actually create the end-to-end solution for PPP loans with automated loan submittal, our doc generation, funding of the loans, boarding of the loans, doing any reconciliation on the back end with any systems if needed. For some of our clients were new onboarded clients, so ensuring that their accounts, their deposit accounts are actually associated with the loans, things of that nature. And then lastly, the forgiveness payment processing of that as well. So that obviously takes into reviews and determine if there's going to be partial full payment. So having all that end-to-end automated and reducing the overall timelines has driven significant impacts to the business. And just to give you kind of some details on the improvements that we saw. So Within each sub-process that I mentioned, we saw about a 50% increase, improvement in the SLAs. So for example, with our loan boarding, it actually took us about an hour per loan to board. With the bot, it actually does in less than 20 minutes. We actually could potentially get that faster, but this process runs on a Citrix environment, so it slows down our performance just a bit. But you can see how significantly impactful automation is to an end-to-end process at the sub-process level. So now you look at it holistically, that shaves the process down significantly. So overall, it's really allowed us to, automation has really brought the conversation of looking at our process end to end and giving us multiple solutions for us. And to Ravi's point, RPA may not be the answer. It could be that we need to make some adjustments and just update the process, take out some value add, really do some value stream mapping to understand what the pain points are and be able to, drive transformation in other ways outside of automation.
Absolutely. No, I think that's an excellent, by the way, example, David, and thanks for sharing. And actually, I think it again revalidates what Ravi was also talking about, holistic employee experience, value stream, journey mapping, for us to, really derive more value for all the stakeholders, not merely just from the operational efficiency perspective. I'll go a little off script and would like to, we've been talking about a lot of, there's a question that came in, so, I just want to post, in that order, Ravi, and then to David. One of the questions that has come in, this looks great, but how did you guys go about communicating to the employees? And I think the reason this question is very pertinent is because, when you use the word, well, I typically don't use the word robot, but when you use the word even automation, it has a certain recall in minds of employees. Ravi, what was that all at People's United in terms of how did you communicate? Clearly, you have been very successful. How did you, do that effectively? At People's United in terms of communicating to employees about automation adoption?
Yeah, so that's a very important piece, right? Because when we first started talking about, hey, in next year we want to do more RPA or something like that, when it was just a vague concept, right? People Googled automation, and one of the big questions that everybody had was, are you automating our jobs away, right? And so it did take some effort, and I think that is where, again, not to come back to the and keep talking about citizen-led development and integrated governance, which what I called it, right? Where what we did was, like, again, we said, what is the purpose of RPA? So it's everybody understand RPA essentially means you're automating stuff, right? But if you do not lead with saying the purpose of RPA is so that we will then have only 70% of staffing or 60%, if you don't lead with that, there is so much other value, right? And that's a very, in my mind, that's a very narrow lens, right? And a short-term lens of actually not even seeing the full potential of RPA, right? Would that be possible? Yes, there is some level of task automation that makes for most of the drudgery kind of automated, so you don't have to, right? So is there a possibility in a certain scope of saying we don't need X number of people doing the task with the bot, right? But this is why I'm saying the value proposition is in taking a business user friendly automation tool, which is so many people have learned the tool now, and they've learned and they feel like they're actually making their jobs better. They're making their life when they come in, what they're doing is more intellectually stimulating for them, right? Can everybody do that? Not really. So one, we were straight up and transparent to say that in the end, would there be a possibility of some impacts? There could be. But again, like I said, we led with by saying our primary purpose of RPA introduction in the bank was going to be about staff productivity, right? We are going to help you become more productive, right? We are going to, help you improve your processing times, reduce your errors, etc. And upskilling. We in our universe here, the automation program is considered an opportunity to learn new stuff and upskill yourself. That's how it is looked at, rather than, oh, here you go, they're automating some jobs away. There are people in almost universally all of our areas, including the contact center operations everywhere, saying, can I get more automation, please?
Yeah.
Right. And again, there's also the concept of cost avoidance, especially if you're a company that is thinking of growing. You don't have to displace employees, right? You don't have to look at it from that lens. You can create scale, right? And when you're creating scale, you're incenting loyalty. The same employees can now, with the help of a digital assistant, we call them. We had digital workers. We have assisted robots where the person is kind of clicks on that while being on the call for certain level of automation, right? I want to do the mortgage payoff calculation. Okay, good. So he's on the call, he or she's on the call talking to the customer, then the bot does the calculation for them. So it's an assistant, it's like a digital assistant. So I think there are ways to explain, and as long as we are straight up with, here is the potential minor impact, but the primary purpose of automation is this, we've actually found a huge amount of embracing of RPA by our operational users. While I've heard stories where in other organizations it was seen as I don't need you, come in here and tell me, we already know, everything is fine, go away. We don't see it that way. They embrace our RPA team.
Absolutely. Now, Ravi, I think the cornerstone of employee productivity and the fact that it's doing more with less or doing more with existing resources, I think it definitely resonates. I'm sure it'll resonate. And I'll also ask David. David, I mean, you must have been asked this question as well when you were setting up this Center of Excellence. What was your response at City National?
Yes, you're exactly right. I think most organizations have to have this conversation at some level, right? But I think the two things that we really saw make those conversations and the overall implementation of RPA much more seamlessly and got a lot of involvement from our colleagues is having a top-down approach, and a bottoms-up approach. So top-down would having our executive sponsor really sharing the vision, right? It's not that we're just placing workers and replacing them with bots, right? That's not, we're really trying to enable our growth and create capacity. So we're upskilling our colleagues and they're able to do more value tasks. And as our volumes are increasing, we're able to handle those without adding additional resources. So we're more having the colleagues think of this as an opportunity to grow and learn new skill sets rather than where they're going to be replaced, right? So that was one thing. Secondly, is having lunch and learns and actually sitting with those stakeholders, sitting with those operational leaders and educating them on what RPA is, what it can do, what it cannot do, and really showing how they can work hand in hand with automation and getting them excited for what that future operating model would look like. And that's really helped us disseminate RPA and educate people across City National Bank and help us really have that partnership, because initially there was some conversations where we would have stakeholders not wanting to divulge some of the process information, things of that nature, and rightfully so, because they had the perception they were going to be replaced. But having those conversations and now working with them and then actually seeing the automation in production and working hand in hand, same question as Ravi is, when can we get more automation? When can we get more bots into our operation? So it's really allowed us to build partnerships and educate everybody, and now have more people telling me that they've gone on UiPath Academy, if they've taken the RPA starter, things of that nature, just to get them excited about it. And one of the things that's actually worked well for us is now leveraging Automation Hub, having that gamification of how many ideas you submit, how many in production. That's also helped some of the core groups have their own little internal competition between them, making sure that they're actually actively involved within our COEs. So I really think it's all around communication and sharing the vision and being clear on really what the intentions of automation. It's really going to help the adoption and acceptance of it overall.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean,
David makes a good point, right? The whole showing the dashboard. It's important to, one of the things I've talked a lot about, all the things we can do with all the employees, but executive buy-in is something I probably was a little light on talking about. I will say that is important, and having like something like UiPath Insights, where we were able to show the dashboard very cleanly, and like all of the entire RPA team has their elevator pitch ready. I'm comfortable, for example, in our case, that any one of them, if they happen to ride the elevator, well, pre-COVID or post-COVID, I'll say, with our CEO, they can explain the value of the RPA program in 2 minutes, right? In terms that the executive management would know, oh yeah, okay, right? So dashboards and showing what you're doing is an important part. I do agree with David.
Fantastic. No, I think balanced scorecard, is an executive facing, it's a great tool for us to convey the ROI. We are in the, home stretch of this riveting conversation, and I was, I was thinking of how do I rephrase this question. And one way to rephrase this question, Ravi, and I'll start with you, is what is a true north? You spoke about capabilities, painted us a picture in terms of what is going to be critical, but what is also going to be that ends near term or mid-term end state that you really think that automation would achieve in an enterprise like People's United? What would that true north look like in your mind?
Wow, I'd probably say this is the most difficult question of all the ones that you've asked me so far. So the first answer I would say very fairly is I don't know. The biggest thing is I'm reading what's on the screen. It says, how would a fully automated enterprise look like? I don't know. Would probably be a fair, the right way to answer that question. But I can see so many things though that currently are done manually that can be automated. And the other part of maybe not how a fully automated enterprise would look like. That's probably a good question for Elon Musk, maybe. He has the vision to answer those kind of things. But with my limited knowledge, I will say more. There are things that we could do by, for example, what we've done here at People's is, it started off as the RPA, Center of Excellence. Now we call it the Process Automation Group, right? And we have now a process optimization group working very closely with the process automation group. And in our view, process automation includes low code, no code technology. So I would view this more as more and more democratization of technology, as more and more abstraction and ease of use gets there, right? I would look at automation and use of technology in general in banking to become like driving. Right? I'll tell you why. None of us learn how to drive because we want to become a truck driver or a taxi cab driver. It's not a functional, I want to make my money driving kind of. We all learn how to drive because it is needed as part of our lives. So using technology and automation will become like driving, which is, it is still use of technology, it's still use of new things, and there is evolution in that, but it becomes just how we operate. It's just like if you go back 30, 40 years, general ledger meant big green books that people wrote in. And now nobody talks about general ledger being a big green book, right? And similarly, let's take GPS. I'm going to date myself, but way back when I wanted to travel somewhere in the US, I went to AAA, got my triptych, highlighter stuff, and I had a navigator who'll sit next to me and tell me, no, turn here. No, not here, next one, right? Now, what do? We all just turn our GPS. And one other thing I will say, our backup to the GPS is still not AAA. It's just the other guy's cell phone in the car, right? So automation will be part of kind of like driving, and the backup to automation will be more resilient automation, not manual stuff.
Fascinating battles between driving and what future of an automated enterprise would look like. I mean, Ravi, thanks for connecting the dots for the audience today. I'll quickly ask David, and I know we are almost up for the time. David, if you had 30 seconds, how would you respond to this? I'm sorry to put you in a spot here.
Yeah, Yeah, and I really think the direction of hyper automation is what an enterprise, fully automated enterprise looks like. So really leveraging tools like process and task mining to accelerate process discovery and documentation, and as well as Studio X to really democratize development and accelerate the expansion of it. But really more than anything, I really think changing the way we work, so we are working hand in hand with automation, is what that fully automated enterprise looks like. And for example, I really think that thinking back years ago, not everybody used Excel, not everybody used email, those type of tools, and now you can get through your work day without using one of those, right? I really feel like automation, having a digital assistant or a bot, is going to be at that point, in short future. So I really feel like we're going to be changing the way we work and not be so reliant on automation and having it just in the background, but we're working hand in hand, and it's helping us change the way we're working on a daily basis and be more efficient.
No, fantastic, fantastic. Like most good things, unfortunately, we've come to the end. I'm going to make a recommendation to my team and extended team that next time we have Ravi and David, 60 minutes is not enough. Absolutely riveting. I mean, some of the articulation that happened plus the examples made it highly relevant, for us and for our audience. So on behalf of our audience as well as from UiPath, Ravi and David, I really thank you, for your insights today. I have learned a lot, and hopefully this recording will go a long way in enriching our audiences as well. So thank you again for joining us today.
David and Amit, thank you for having me on the panel. It was great. David, wonderful talking to you again. Amit, you too. It was great being part of this.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you.